Okay, so what I want to talk about today is your brain's prefrontal cortex and a function called the executive command, I think. And the whole point of that is, well, the whole reason I want to talk about this is that it's really crucial understanding who you are. So the last video I was talking about, oh, it's important to have a personal philosophy, blah, 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 blah. And I made sure to say this isn't about being, really fancy or really this or that, right? Not that it is. But the whole point of it is so that it's practical. I think it is entirely practical. I think a lot of people think of, say, more of these, deep thinking ideas as just going in circles, right? And that's probably because so many deep people we know who are like, deep thinkers, or whenever we think very deeply ourselves, we make problems worse, right? Because we're not actually constructively thinking. We're just going around in circles and circles, letting the mind chew on something. When you actually consciously choose to think deeply, so not just doing the unconscious version of it where you're just going around and around and around, you make yourself anxious and bloody crazy, right? Where everyone's trying to escape themselves. I think there's a lot more utility in that. So when I'm talking about consciously thinking and forming that philosophy, I think there's a lot of utility there that's practical. It's not just thoughts for the sake of thoughts. And one of the ways you can always anchor thoughts in a level of practicality is by thinking about biology, right? Biology is the most unabstract part of you, right? You could get into the mind, but that's all abstract, right? It's harder for people to buy into that, right? And how the mind works and this and that, because you can't see it, feel it, touch it. Do a lot of tests on it, right? It's psychology, it's not science, right? It's still science, but just for that argument's sake, you see what I mean. So when we're going with uh, biology, if you want to build a personal philosophy, start with the facts, right? And one of the things I love learning about is how the brain works, right? Because it's not the mind, right? The brain is the brain. It's like an organ, it's a machine, right? The mind is something more abstract, right? You could just say the mind is just a product of the brain, right? I think consciousness is something very different. I think everyone kind of knows that to a certain level, maybe not. But the brain in itself, in terms of how, say, the dopamine receptors work, um, how it influences certain decisions of yours, you can actually scientifically measure it. So now getting into the prefrontal cortex, I might do a series of these videos. I just call it brain, like brain 101. My opinion on the brain, or like what I know about it, right? And what I want to talk about today is the prefrontal cortex, because there's a function of it which is executive command, which pretty much just decides yes or no. There's loads of other things, right? Uh, but executive command, one of the key features of it is gas or brakes, right? So whenever we say sit down and we could do something or not do something, that part of our brain is the self control, and it's very simple. It's just, have I built the go pathways or have I built the brake pathways, right? People with brake pathways probably a lot more successful than people with go pathways, because it's in response to dopamine. That's what the yes or no is, right? If I put a really okay, how about this? I put a really nice cake in front of you. Can you stop yourself from eating it? Gas or brakes, right? If I put, if I just watch you come home and I'm like, hey, you got to get this done, but first, your phone dings, but you got to get this done really quickly. But do you check your phone? Do you reply to that message or email, whatever notification? Gas or brakes, right? So you can see, if you just get a tiny bit of understanding about this and then just watch yourself, you'll see that this choice presents itself hundreds of times in a day, right? Gas or brakes, gas or brakes. Can I delay that bit of gratification for this? One more video, right? I'm super guilty of this. I do it all the time. And I think just by employing that frame of, do I want to hit the gas? Do I want to hit the brakes? Understanding that the choice gets easier, right? If you're trying to stop a habit or an addiction or addictive behavior, whatever it is, you're trying to stop it. Understand that it's not just like, oh, it's going to get easier. I'm sure it'll get easier in time. It's literally getting easier because you're strengthening that pathway, right? The neurology, I think most people learn about it in school, which is there's a use it or lose it. And that, like anatomy, I don't know. The brain is based on a use it or lose it principle, right? Certain pathways are formed because you kept using them. Some are lost because you stopped using them, right? So it's the exact same for this function we're talking about today, which is if you can stop yourself from doing something, it actually gets easier next time, right? So if you think about people who have lots of self-control, they've probably just got very good brake pathway where they're not constantly jumping at things, right? And then that begs the question as I'm talking about this, what's the use of having the go for it pathway? And I'm guessing that's probably a very primitive thing, which is like, there's food, let's go get it, right? Where maybe like a deer or something, I don't know, who could get preyed on by a wolf would probably have a lot of breaks and be like, right, we need to think about this. If I run in there and try to get that food, I'm going to get marked. So yeah, that's that. Very impromptu video. I'm a day behind again. As you can tell from my eyes, I'm absolutely shattered. So yeah, no excuse. I had a big day. I had a big day yesterday. I was out the whole day. Came home, 5 minutes, went back out to work. I didn't get up until 10. Yeah, this is all excuse, but it really did set my mind to make the video. And I would have made it when I came home, but I just went straight to bed. But anyway, little video today. Nothing much. Video later will be a bit better.